This one-time cradle of civilization is facing a climate catastrophe unlike any other. And according to climate scientists, a small taste of what's to come across the globe.
The Euphrates didn't just dry up. It screamed before it cracked wide open. And what came out may have been sealed away since the dawn of time. People found skeletons too big for any human, bound in rusted metal, with symbols carved into their skulls, symbols that matched the book of Revelation. Tune in, because the last seal just broke, and 4 shadows now stand where the gate used to be. When the river stopped breathing. The Euphrates River was never supposed to stop. For thousands of years, it gave life to lands, crops, cities, and people. It carved deep into the earth, carried stories from long ago, and moved like a giant, slow heartbeat across the Middle East. But now, something under the dry river is waking up, and it's scarier than anyone thought. That heart was slowing down. The water level dropped more each year. At first, no one panicked. They blamed it on heat, blamed it on dams upstream, blamed it on nature. But then the cracks in the riverbed started showing, and what was hidden underneath changed everything. The first signs came with silence. Birds didn't land, fish didn't swim. Water that once rushed past villages now stood still. Brown, crusted silt rose where currents used to run. The river was pulling back, as if something ancient underneath was pushing up. Then came the smell, like old metal, like something buried a long time ago. Farmers near the bank said they smelled rust. Archaeologists showed up. They brought shovels, cameras, notebooks. They thought they'd find old coins, bones, maybe some broken pots. But they didn't find pots. They found chains, big ones, black with age, bent like something had pulled against them hard long ago. The chains were wrapped around huge stones, too heavy for machines to move without help. Some were broken, others were loose. The dig team stared. The chains didn't match anything from the time of kings or soldiers. These were older, meaner, built to hold something, not to mark land, not to decorate a grave. These were made to keep something in. At first people laughed it off, said maybe it was from a ship or some ancient jail. But then a low hum started vibrating under the dirt. No one could explain it. Some said it was machines nearby. Others said it was the wind. Then came the sound, a deep roar from under the earth. Not thunder, not an animal. It echoed across the dry riverbed like a scream from below. Workers dropped their tools. One man ran, others froze. The sound lasted only 10 seconds, but it felt longer, felt older, felt like a warning. The news spread fast. Video clips made it online. People started whispering about Bible verses, the ones about the Euphrates drying up in the end days, the ones about angels trapped below. 4 of them, bound in chains, waiting for release, waiting for a time, a day, a year. People said this was that time. Then the second discovery hit. 20 miles downstream, the river dried up even more. A group of locals walking near the banks found something sharp sticking out of the cracked mud. At first, they thought it was junk, a fence post maybe. But when they pulled it out, the mud didn't let go easy. It was a sword. Not just any sword. This thing was huge, at least 5 feet long, heavy, covered in green rust and red dirt. The handle was thick, the blade wide, the kind of weapon meant for a giant, not a man. Word spread again, fast. Was it Goliath's sword? Was it from one of the Nephilim? People online lost their minds. Bible scholars debated. Historians called it out of place. Soldiers couldn't explain how a weapon that size got buried in Iraq when no known battle matched it. But people didn't care about battles. They cared about signs. And the signs were piling up, not just at the Euphrates either. Rivers in other parts of the world were turning red. Deep, blood red. Some blamed algae, some blamed pollution. But not everyone bought that. especially when it started happening in rivers that had never turned red before. Believers remembered the stories, the ones from the book of Revelation, where rivers turn to blood, where the sun burns hotter, where angels sound trumpets from heaven, where the Euphrates dries to make way for the final battle. One scientist said it was a coincidence. One preacher said it was a prophecy. One farmer just stood at the edge of the riverbed, staring at the dry crack where his crops used to drink. And then came the bones. Buried under a foot of dirt and rock, something long and white started to show. The digging team uncovered more. Arms, ribs, a skull. But not like any skull they'd seen before. This one had sharp ridges, deep sockets, a jaw too wide, teeth too flat. This wasn't just a skeleton, it was a giant. They measured it, 13 feet long, knees bent, spine curled. If this thing had stood upright, it would have towered over trees. The bones were fossilized, but the shape was clear, and it didn't match any human from history. The word came back, Nephilim. In Genesis 6:4, it says they were giants, the offspring of angels and human women, creatures of great strength, beings who filled the earth with violence, beings God wiped out in the flood. But maybe the flood didn't hide everything. That night, the ground made a new sound, the roar below. It happened after dark, out by the Euphrates River. The water had dried up and the ground had cracked wide open. A small crew was on site, just checking the area and making sure no one crossed the line. It was supposed to be a quiet night. No noise, no trouble. Just another shift under the stars. But then the ground began to shake. It wasn't a full earthquake, just a small tremble, enough to make the rocks twitch. A deep, low roar rolled up from under the earth, crawling through the stone like a living thing. It didn't sound like thunder or a windstorm. It sounded older, like the riverbed itself was alive and angry. The crew froze where they stood. The sound moved through their boots and hit their bones. One man dropped his flashlight. Another pulled out his phone to record, but the screen only showed static. A black screen and a thin red line across the bottom, like something was trying to erase what it saw. Then everything went dark. The lights, the cameras, the sensors, even the backup batteries, everything went dead. The site was silent and black for 1 full minute. When the power finally came back, something was different. No one could explain it, but the feeling hung heavy in the air. The next morning they checked the video feeds. Most of it was normal, but one camera had caught something strange. Just for a second, a dark shape moved low across the edge of the dry river. It was too fast to follow and too big to be a normal animal. Then it was gone. After that, the quiet crews were replaced. Government trucks rolled in, big, heavy wheels, black paint, no logos. The workers wore masks and gloves, and they built a fence around the site. No one was allowed near, not even the locals who lived nearby. The river wasn't finished with them. 2 days later, another part of the riverbed cracked like an old plate. Underneath the broken ground, they found more bones. Not a full body this time, just the top half. A giant spine, ribs, arms, and a skull. The skull alone was 10 feet long, with deep cracks and strange carvings scratched into the forehead. The mouth was wide open, full of jagged, flat teeth, not made for biting, but made for crushing. Heavy metal cuffs still locked the arms in place. Thick chains ran from the cuffs into the stone. Around the chains, symbols were carved into the rock. Not words, swirls, stars, shapes that looked like eyes and fire. This was no simple grave. It was a prison. And something had tried to break free. More guards arrived. More fences went up. But even with all the extra security, news leaked out. Some blurry photos hit the internet. Some videos disappeared almost as fast as they were posted. But a few screenshots stayed. People started to whisper again about Revelation, about prophecy, about the 4 angels chained beneath the Euphrates River, waiting for their time to be released. An hour, a day, a month, a year. No one knew if the time had come, but the signs were getting harder to ignore. Upstream, another team made a discovery. Inside a newly opened cave, they found walls covered in ancient black and red paint. The shapes told strange stories. Creatures with wings and claws, stars falling from the sky, monsters crashing into the earth. At the very back of the cave, there was a door. It wasn't built with wood or metal. It was carved straight into the rock. A flat slab with no hinges and no handle. Just more of those strange symbols, the same ones found on the giant's chains. Around the door's edge, deep claw marks scratched into the stone, like something inside had tried to rip its way out. The digging team didn't dare touch the door. They marked the spot and backed away. Nobody wanted to be the one who opened it. But it wasn't just bones and doors anymore. The land around the river started to change. Birds disappeared. Insects were gone. Trees along the banks dried up, their leaves turning brown. A strange smell rode the wind, something like rust and smoke. Some workers said it was gas leaking from the ground. Others said it smelled like blood. Soon after, the black water appeared. Thick, dark liquid started bubbling up through cracks in the dried riverbed. It wasn't mud or oil. It was something darker, heavier. It shimmered under the sun and moved slowly, like it was alive. When a few drops landed on a worker's glove, it burned right through, leaving a hole the size of a coin. That part of the site was shut down, but it didn't stop the changes. The river kept sinking, and every drop in water brought something new to the surface. One crew found a horn buried deep under the cracked earth. It wasn't from a ram or a bull. It was longer, darker, twisted and polished. Small carvings covered it, tiny stars, little faces, sharp zigzag lines. It didn't look like it came from any animal. It looked made, but made by what? Then they found the tunnel, a narrow hole sloping down under the riverbed. Big enough for a small car to fit, but too smooth to be natural. Something had been going in and out of it for a long time. They sent a drone into the tunnel. It made it about 50 feet in before the signal cut off. The drone never came back. Whatever was down there wasn't ready to be seen. Some believed it was one of the chained angels. Others whispered about the Nephilim, the giant race from the Bible, the children of angels and humans, wiped out in the Great Flood. Or so the stories said. But what if some had survived? What if the drying Euphrates River wasn't just about water disappearing? What if it was a key, unlocking something the world had forgotten? They thought it was over. Then the stone started to glow. The sealed gate. The Euphrates River was no longer a river. It had become a scar across the land, nothing but dry dirt, cracked mud, broken bones, and ancient secrets that refused to stay buried. Every time the water dropped, it showed more of what was hidden, more strange things that did not belong in this world, things no one could explain, things no one should have ever found. And now there was the gate. At first they did not call it that. To the scientists it was just the slab, a giant flat stone shaped like a door carved right into the wall of the riverbed. There was no handle, no hinges, no lock, only strange symbols. The same symbols seen on the old shackles, the bone markings and the horn. Some shapes looked like stars or flames. Some were curved lines like snakes. Over and over again, there was a circle with a line through it. One worker said it looked like a seal, a warning made to keep something out, or maybe to keep something in. No one wanted to touch it, not even the guards. They built a fence around it, set up lights, and put cameras up to watch it day and night. Still, the door started to change. The surface of the stone began to fade, slowly, like it was being washed clean, even though no water touched it. The red paint chipped away, and the carvings looked new again, as if they were being written from the inside. Soon after, the heat began. The cameras picked it up first. A heat signature started growing behind the stone. It was not fire or sunlight. It was more like a glowing warmth, as if something was breathing back there. The heat grew fast. In 2 days, what started as a mild reading became a full heat alert. Yet the stone never cracked. It pulsed instead. A soft red pulse, barely there unless you look closely. It moved like a slow, steady heartbeat, an old, ancient beat that seemed alive. Then the dream started. People near the site, guards, workers, drivers, began to report the same kinds of nightmares. They dreamed of the river water turning red. They dreamed of shadows standing in the river. They saw 4 giant figures breaking chains and rising from the mud. Some dreamed of fire falling from the sky. Others saw faces in the stone, but these were not carvings. These faces were moving. A few workers could not take it. They quit and left. One man was found barefoot, walking toward the desert. He had scratched strange symbols into his own skin. When they asked him why, he simply said, "It's almost time." After that, the guards were doubled. No one was allowed within 10 feet of the gate, but the river kept changing. Downstream, another section of the riverbed collapsed. The ground split wide open, showing a dark chamber lined with smooth, black stone. Inside, there were steps cut by hand, leading down into the darkness. No lights worked in there. Flashlights flickered and died. Batteries drained without warning. The first team that went down only lasted 5 minutes. They came back up pale and shaking. One man threw up. Another man would not speak at all. He just stared straight ahead, empty. They said it was not a room. It was a tomb. Carvings lined the walls, showing twisted bodies with wings, horns, claws, and empty eyes. Each one was chained by the neck, looking up toward a sun that was not drawn. The team refused to go back in. Instead, they sent a drone. It lasted longer, 10 minutes, enough to reach the bottom. In the center of the tomb was a pit, a black hole cut into the floor. The drone hovered above it, light shining down. At first, it looked like smoke was inside the pit. Then it looked like tendrils. Then it looked like movement, crawling, pulsing movement. The drone feed cut out without warning. They did not send another. That night, a storm rolled in, but it was not like any normal storm. The clouds did not spin or swirl. They crawled across the sky, thick and black. No wind blew, no thunder rolled, only darkness hung over the riverbed. Then the lightning started, not in the sky, on the ground. Bolts of white light cracked up from the dirt, first small, then bigger. They jumped from one broken chain to another, from the stone gate to the river's edge. Every strike hit the ground with a hiss, as if something below was trying to break free. The ground groaned again, one long, deep sound, like rock being bent under heavy pressure. It was the same groan they had heard the night the power went out, the same sound that had come with the first terrible roar. People began calling it a warning. Others whispered that it was a countdown. They remembered what the Bible said. Revelation 9:14. Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. And then Revelation 16:12. The river dries up to prepare the way for the kings of the east. Now the river was almost dry. The gate was glowing. The pit had been found. Everything was lining up like pieces falling into place. Then came the quake. It was a short one, lasting only 30 seconds, but it was enough to crack one of the stone walls near the gate. The crack ran deep, slicing through the strange symbols and into the dirt below. It did not break the gate, not yet, but the pulse changed. It beat faster now, like whatever was behind the stone was no longer sleeping. And that was when the sound returned. It was not the roar this time, it was a trumpet, a hollow, metallic blast that echoed through the dry riverbed, as if underwater. No one could find where it came from. It came and went like the wind, but everyone heard it. The guards, the workers, even the people living in nearby towns. When the trumpet sound faded, the gate gave off a single, sharp crack. A line ran from top to bottom. The seal was breaking, and behind it, something was waiting. The crack got wider. The ground felt like it was breathing, the giants beneath. The crack in the gate was not very wide, just an inch or two, but even a small crack was enough to change everything. Heat blasted out like it was coming from a giant furnace. The stone around it started to steam. Birds flew away and never came back. Insects disappeared. None of the guards stood close anymore. They set up cameras instead, hoping machines could see what humans should not. But the cameras kept fogging up. The screens glitched, flashed, or even went dark. Some turned blood red. It was clear the gate was not opening like a door. It was bleeding. And whatever was behind it was no longer hiding. Downriver, more bones started showing up. They were not animal bones. They were not human either. These bones were twisted and strange. Some spines were 10 feet long. Jaws with flat teeth sat cracked and broken. In just 3 days, 2 full skeletons were pulled out. Both were chained in rusty iron. One had its hands crushed together like it tried to pray before it died. Locals started calling them the Nephilim, the ancient ones, the giants, born from angels and humans. Some said God had flooded the world to get rid of them. Others said they were sealed in darkness, waiting. And now the Euphrates River was giving them back. The river was not just drying up, it was peeling away like old skin. Each layer it lost showed something new, something that should not be there. One place revealed a staircase carved from smooth stone worn down by time. It led to a deep, round room covered in carvings and paintings on every wall. Statues stood inside, each one different. One statue had the face of a lion and the wings of an eagle. Another had 6 arms, each holding a strange tool. Another looked almost human, but had a long mouth and no eyes. Even though they were different, they all had chains around their ankles. Each one was locked to the floor, all of them facing the center of the room. At the very center was a hole. It was perfectly round, black, and colder than anything else nearby. The air around it dropped 20 degrees. Equipment failed. No one wanted to get close. No one dared to go in. Instead, they sealed the room shut again, not to protect the find, but to keep whatever was inside from getting out. After that, the people started praying, not just inside churches, but right by the river. Men, women, and children all gathered. Some cried, some shouted, some threw salt and oil into the cracks, some begged for forgiveness. One old man warned that the chains were not just made of metal, they were spiritual too. He said when the last seal broke, 4 angels would rise. Maybe, he said, the final seal was not metal at all, but human pride. While the teams rushed to calm everyone down, the Euphrates shifted again. A massive piece of land collapsed. The riverbed cracked wide open like a giant egg. Rotten air came pouring out so bad that it knocked birds right out of the sky. Then came the light. It was not bright white like sunlight. It was not the orange of fire. It was deep, dark red. It flickered like it was alive. The cracks in the ground pulsed like veins. The earth looked like it was breathing. Inside that red glow, they found something else. A stone tablet. It was square, covered in ancient carvings. Not just pictures this time. There were words. Some looked like old Babylonian writing. Some did not match anything at all. But the message was clear. 4 names, 4 seals, 4 kings. Each name matched the carvings they had found earlier, on the bones, on the statues, and even on the giant horn. The names were old, whispered by historians, but now they were carved in stone for everyone to see. The last name had a special mark next to it, a circle cracked right down the middle. Broken. The gate had not just cracked open by accident. One of the seals had been lifted, and now the signs were coming faster. Animals fled the river. The trees nearby turned grey. The sky over the Euphrates changed colours too. It was not blue anymore. It was yellow during the day, purple at sunset, and blood red before dawn. The ground, never stopped shaking. They were not huge earthquakes, but just enough to feel under your feet, like something big was crawling far below, something moving, something stirring. They set up ground sensors, hoping to figure out what was going on. The machines showed movement, not just in one place, but all over. Big shapes, slow and heavy, turning under the earth. It looked like giants pacing back and forth inside cages. Then the trumpet sound started again. Not once, but every single night. Always just after midnight. 3 short blasts, then silence. Some people said it was the angels warning the world. Others said it was the final countdown to something worse. Then came the red water. It was not mud. It was not dirt. The water bubbling up from the cracks was thick and dark, almost like syrup. It glowed red at night. Scientists tried to calm people down, saying it was just algae, but the locals knew the old stories. They remembered the tales about rivers turning to blood. They read from Exodus and Revelation. The old plagues were not just stories anymore. They were happening right now. The signs kept coming. One night, the moon turned a deep, terrible red. It stayed that way for 3 full hours. People called it a blood moon. The news said it was just an eclipse, but no one had ever seen the moon look like that before. Not that colour, not that long. People stopped calling it the Euphrates River. They gave it a new name, the River of Judgment. The sky got darker. The last block holding it back was about to fall. The last seal breaks. It started just before the sun came up. A strange sound tore through the valley. Not thunder, not wind. It was sharper, longer, like metal being pulled apart. It didn't echo like normal sounds do. It felt deeper, like it came from under the ground, like the earth was being ripped in two. What once looked like a small crack in the old gate had grown. It wasn't a crack anymore. It had turned into a tear, a jagged, crooked opening running all the way from the top to the bottom of the stone door. That door had always been sealed tight, like nothing could ever break through it. But now, it looked like something had pushed from the inside, bent it in, tried to get out. The guards who once stood there were no longer around. They had been pulled back days ago. Too many of them had fallen sick. The rest, they just walked away, without a word. Some of them said the stone was watching them. Others said their dreams were getting darker, harder to wake from. People in nearby towns began to leave, not in panic, but in silence. No bags, no plans, just gone. They whispered about hearing trumpets in their sleep. A few swore they saw tall shadows standing in the dry riverbed at night, not moving, just watching. Then the heat came, but it wasn't like a hot summer day. This was something worse. The air grew thick and heavy, like breathing through smoke. Animals fell where they stood. Trees split open without warning. Water near the gate started to bubble, not from fire, but from pressure building underneath, like something was pushing up from below. After that came the scream, one long, hollow sound that came from deep inside the earth. It wasn't the kind of scream a person makes. It didn't sound like it had a start or an end. It just echoed and echoed, reaching far across the land. People living miles away could hear it. Some dropped to their knees. Others turned and ran without looking back. That was when the last seal broke. No one saw it happen. There was no flash, no blast. Just the sound of stone letting go. The gate cracked down the middle and slowly collapsed in on itself. It didn't shatter like glass. It folded, like a giant door being opened for the first time in ages. And behind it, darkness. Not normal darkness, not the kind you find in caves. This darkness moved. It rolled out across the ground like smoke, but heavier, thicker. It crawled low, like it was searching for something. And standing in that shadow was a figure. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It was tall, silent, still. You couldn't see its face, but you could feel it, like fire, fear, and something older than time pressing down on your chest. Then came 3 more figures, each just as quiet, just as cold. Now there were 4 of them, the 4 angels, the ones spoken of in Revelation 9:15, the ones who were bound for a certain time, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, 1 year. That time had passed. They had been released. They didn't come forward. They didn't rise into the sky. They just stayed inside the darkness, breathing, waiting. Like they already knew what would happen next. The ground near the gate cracked wider. More bones appeared, not pieces, not broken parts. Full skeletons, twisted, curled in pain. It looked like they had died trying to crawl away from something underground. The bones stretched for miles. Then came the flood, but not of water. It was red. The riverbed, which had been dry for months, burst wide open. From beneath the old gate, thick red water shot out like from a broken pipe. It blasted into the air, then crashed down onto the land, covering everything. It rushed over machines, over tents, over every inch of ground nearby. It wasn't blood, and it wasn't rain. It was something different, hot, heavy, full of dust and ash, full of the remains of old cities and forgotten lives. People tried to stop it, but you can't stop what's already been written. You can't stop prophecy. The trumpet sounded again, 7 times. The sky didn't just flash, it peeled open like someone pulling back a curtain. Behind it was fire. Stars went out, blinking one by one. The moon turned deep red. The sun grew dim, and the air shook like it was afraid. The 4 angels didn't move, but everything else did. The world started to change. Earthquakes hit cities far away. Volcanoes exploded without warning. Forest animals ran in giant herds. Birds circled the skies, never stopping. It was like the earth itself was nervous, restless, unsure of what to do. And people who remembered the Bible knew what was next. After the 6th trumpet comes the 7th. After the Euphrates dries up, the final battles begin. After the seals break, judgment follows. Some believed the angels were bringing it. Others believed they were only the start. Either way, the Euphrates was no longer just a river. It was a sign, a warning, a gate. And it had been opened. At the very end, something else appeared. Near the far bend of the river, a giant skeleton rose from the red-soaked dirt, bigger than all the others. Its arms reached out, its face tilted to the sky. No chains, no cuffs, just one thing. A massive sword stuck through its chest. Some called it the last of the Nephilim. Others said it had been the guardian of the gate. But whatever it wasn't guarding anything anymore. The gate was gone. The seals were broken. And the river had told its story. The world would never be the same again. What do you think? Was it the last Nephilim? Or something worse? Like it, share your craziest theory in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more forbidden stories.